Mr. Albanese, MACRA's incentive structure is a critical component of our efforts to transition to value-based care. However, we need to ensure that these incentives are sufficient and effectively targeted to encourage providers to improve care quality and reduce costs. In your testimony, you mentioned the need to revise MACRA's incentive structure to make payments more sustainable. Could you elaborate on your suggestion? What specific changes or adjustments would you propose to enhance the effectiveness of the incentive structure?
Certainly, Congresswoman. I know that there have been, previously there has been discussion about other ways to reform payments, such as by indexing to inflation. It's a little bit beyond the scope of my testimony to comment specifically on that, but I would simply urge a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, the overall fiscal situation. Part B is the fastest growing part of Medicare, even with the changes to physician payments that have slowed that growth rate. So there's still policy changes that can exacerbate that situation. And I think going back to the example of other payment systems outside the physician fee schedule, because that is updated very uniquely under MACRA, there are still opportunities for mispricing and overpayment in those systems, and a system where the federal government is setting payment every year is not going to necessarily perfectly predict the economic value of services. So just trying to not emulate the worst abuses of those payment systems and return to that fee-for-service framework, that coupled with the fiscal sustainability would be the principles I would keep in mind.
Thank you. Ms. Pittman, from your perspective, what changes, if any, would you suggest to MACRA's incentive structure to better support the transition to value-based care within ACOs?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has been very effective is the incentive payments to move to value, how we would want to, there are some challenges with that, and we would want to see some restructuring. One of the baseline things would be to ensure that all clinicians have adequate payment. Even when you're in an APM, the payments it's based on historical payment, so whatever physicians are paid in fee-for-service defines APM benchmarks. From there, we want to see incentives for those that move to APMs, whether they're risk-bearing or not, and shifting it slightly from the way that it's structured today. I think ultimately we also would want to see more flexibility. That's the non-financial incentive, so more ability to provide additional services beyond what is allowed in Medicare. Medicare Advantage has that benefit of doing additional services, and we would want to see the clinicians participating in ACOs or other APMs to be able to provide some of those flexibilities.
Thank you, and thank you for all of you being here, and I yield back.